Welcome back. More weird and creepy TikToks. Let's go.
This is just another example of Ricky Gervais being the realest celebrity that there is. Have a look at this.
To the general public, we earn astronomical amounts. It's crazy, right? But we're not the villains, right? Because then there's these bigger guys above us that we're closer to ordinary people earning than the billionaires who run the world. This makes me laugh, right? When people get angry about someone on benefit, there's always a story or someone on benefit, right? They're earning like 800 quid a month on benefit, and they could work. So supposing that's true, supposing they're just lazy, right? And they're creaming off a few grand, right? Think of a billionaire who doesn't pay his tax. He's stealing 500 million from all those people from a cancer ward. It's madness.
Wow, spot on. And that's why poverty will never be cured. Because without poor, there is no rich. You need the polarity. There's enough money in the world for every man, woman and child to be a millionaire. But if everybody was rich, nobody would be. It's the poor people who define the rich people. So the next time you give money to charity, remember the end goal isn't to solve world hunger or world poverty. It's only to increase the margin by lining some CEO's pocket. There's a reason there are more than 30 individual billionaires in the pharmaceutical market alone. There are cures, but they don't want to cure you. There is no money in a cure. But there is an endless supply of money, however, in repeat customers. It's the perfect business model. And as long as people are afraid, they will pay.
This is the door being open from the inside.
So can you tell everybody here why they changed to make sure the door doesn't open to the inside before you go ahead, Tom. Give us the breakdown.
Pressure. You've seen all pictures. What happens when an airplane loses a window at like 30,000 feet, right? It's madness, right? All the stuff, you can get sucked right out of there. Just like a guy Pat's eyes will go right out the window like they're going through a meat grinder. And so when this thing goes all the way up and comes back, there's this process they have to do to open the door and to allow the pressure to equalize outside to inside. Not just like you just open it, because the pressure inside is actually lower. So you open that door, that thing would flip open and you'd have your bell rung. It would like blow you.
Open it up, Rob. Watch this.
No,
Look, they're like, close the door!
No, not yet.
Jeff Bezos out there right by the capsule? Kind of hard to see.
That is
I have
that is
to
correct.
pee.
That is Jeff Bezos, our founder.
He has to step up with the official
Yeah.
doohickey thing.
There's so many flaws at this point with this flight. It's ridiculous. There is absolutely no way anyone believes this actually happened.
Number one, it's not what you think it is. It's not coming from other planets. The evidence doesn't suggest that.
Interdimensional.
Yes. And the reason is because time is parallel. It's not linear. Or it's not like we start here and go forward in time. Time is side by side, which means everything in the past and the future is existing in this moment, but within different frequencies. So a civilization that's at the end of their technological cycle could build a submarine that changes its voltage and materializes in that same location, just into our timeline. And then fucking, it's crazy.
Have you ever had any like glitches in the Matrix where like
yes,
time sped up for you, or like I've had that a couple times.
Weird things. So there's a consciousness aspect to this. Like you have to think of like consciousness is like, it's like the mind of God, you know. It's not a dude in a toga with a crown of thorns making Jupiter, you know. It's like everything you see is one band of frequencies. The highest frequency is light, unified mind. The lowest frequency would be blackness, absence of love, absence of whatever. And physical matter is somewhere right in the middle, right? So you have the ability to tune up higher or tune down lower, and behavior and all these things and time, and it all fucking comes together. Your brain is what's called a transducer. You're an antenna.
I'm sure most of you know who this is. He's from Blink-182, Tom DeLonge. He's been obsessed with aliens since back then for years and years. And then he's kind of getting taken under the wing of a few of these people. I think it's SpaceX and these kind of guys when it first started coming out. And I feel sorry for him in a way. Like, he's been on these podcasts from Joe Rogan about 5-6 years ago. And he says so much crazy stuff. And it seems like he almost gets confused with what he's saying. But he's just constantly saying, no, he's got inside people. He knows what he's talking about. Like right now, by this point, he may know what he's talking about. But it's clear that he's been kind of used as some sort of information mule. Like they're telling him some stuff, and then he kind of tells the world some stuff, sounds a little crazy, and it doesn't fall back on them. Don't get me wrong, I would love to believe what he's saying, but I've seen so many times him stuttering and getting confused with what he's saying, And it's almost like an Alex Jones kind of situation. Maybe he's just too excited because he knows so much, or he's been told so much that he thinks is real or is real. But yeah, it's hard to keep up with him, to be honest.
I was gifted something awesome. I was gifted the 1911 11th edition of Encyclopedia Britannica, all of the volumes. And I want to share with you just a couple things that I randomly found just flipping through the pages. So I was just flipping through the different maps, and looky what I found. What is that right there? Tartaria. So here I found Atlantis. And what does it say about Atlantis? It says that it was an island country larger than Asia Minor, that it had been in power 9,000 years earlier, and its armies had overrun most of Europe, except for Athens, which stood alone against it. Now, what's really interesting, that if you read down here, it says that it was a sunken island off the Cornish coast, and that it appeared in many folktales from Gibraltar to Hebrides, and until 1853 was marked on English charts as a rock at 44 degrees and 48 minutes north and 26 degrees and 10 minutes west. Anyone around there, I'd love to see what that looks like. Even what we consider common words like parasite don't have the same meaning as we would think of them today. The early parasites may be divided into two classes, religious and civil. The former were assistants of the priests, their chief duty being to collect the corn dues, which were contributed by the farmers of the temple lands.
If you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. It would help me a lot. Thank you.
You believe in dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, when is the first dinosaur bone ever found? I'm not trolling. I mean this.
No, okay. When was it found?
Yeah, it's as late as the 1700s by only straight white men in the West. Nowhere else in Asia. And they were like $1 million a bone. That's why when you go to museums, dinosaur museums, 99% of the bones are replicas made out of rat bones and resin, and the real bones are in the Smithsonian Museum, but that's actually giant bones from the Bible. The Bible talked about the giants. You went your whole life believing in mainstream media's Jurassic Park. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself.
The Paleolithic era, the Mesozoic, like all these are all fake.
Like, do you believe in evolution?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes.
Where are the intermediary species between the whale and the whale that grew legs over millions of years of adaptation?
This is a wild conversation, and it's clear that they obviously have fake bones for some sort of museums, because there's museums all over the world. They wouldn't have enough bones, I'm sure. But the idea that the whole dinosaur thing's fake, I've heard it before. I don't necessarily stick with it, but if that was the case, it would have been for money, and it would have been to hide the fact that dragons were around longer. But I don't necessarily believe that.
So there's a satellite image from the ESA 7 satellite. This was in 1968, and it was like the first visual of Earth via satellite, or like a composite of it.
Yeah.
But look at, and was
like
stationed over the North Pole, and this is the picture that they released.
What the heck?
And they talked about, it's just the composite images that they all put together, and the North Pole wasn't captured. Right? Okay, well then this was from Google Earth in like the early 2000s. Send this to you.
It's the hole to the center of the Earth.
And then this was released by NASA, I believe, in the 80s or 90s.
You guys,
all separate.
Go.
Holy moly, dude.
That's
Literally.
actually unsettling.
So where's Santa?
But does it not look, if you compare it to that first map,
it's identical.
And people talk about...
And what year was that map? That was like the 1600s?
Yeah.
Gosh, man.
Yeah, and people have talked about, like, apparently NASA, but they've taken it back, or they've, like, scrubbed it or something. They talked about, like, it was really hard to find the image, but there was this obscure image that people, like, zoomed in of the Earth, and at the top there was literally a black stone sticking out, like, at the top of the world.
Oh my gosh.
A black stone.
And it's like the same as this freaking map, bro. Like
Guys,
literally,
these mysteries of the world.
That's like we're never gonna know.
We will. I believe we'll know in heaven. I
Oh
believe.
yeah, but I'm saying like, it's just because
Yeah.
people will say, of course, there's nothing there. Like you just go. Like, people have gone there. It's like,
well,
we don't know.
You know,
that. We don't-
flight plan or flight paths. You're not allowed to fly over
Is it
the North
restricted?
Pole. Yeah, because I mean, probably because it's the most harsh climate. But
Yeah.
still,
Right.
people don't fly over the North Pole.
Yeah.
But Admiral Byrd did.
Admiral Byrd.
We've
Yeah.
talked about him a lot too.
Yeah.
He
Good
did,
name for a pilot.
Yeah, he's associated with a ton of stuff. Like even the Project Fishbowl. He was involved in the Operation High Jump.
Was he the guy that had the heart attack in
I'll never have
Antarctica?
No, that was Buzz Aldrin.
Oh.
Admiral Byrd, this was like shortly after World War II. He was sent with an armada. The Navy sent this whole armada of battleships to the Antarctic. Super weird stuff. And it was just to explore, but it was all weaponized. And so the theory is that he went out there to seek out Nazi hideouts in Antarctica.
Yeah.
So he explored that, said that there's some crazy stuff there. And then he also did an exploration to the North Pole. And this is where this is the conspiracy part.
Okay.
Because apparently he had, and we've talked about it before, I believe, but his secret diary that only he had. And then when he died, his son got it. And then when his son was trying to publish the stuff in it, he died, like under very mysterious circumstances. But Admiral Byrd talks about in this secret diary, allegedly that he wrote, people think that it's fake, that when he went to explore the North Pole, there was an entry to inner Earth, like hollow Earth.
And that would make sense with this big old hole.
It would. And he describes it as being in the Earth, lush green land beyond the ice, mammoth-like creatures, a technology-advanced civilization, and meeting with a being called the Master, who warns humanity about nuclear weapons.
Wow.
So this is where it gets a little like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
But it sounds like the little green children.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought about. It was the green kids.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That literally backs up that story. That's so fun to think about. A giant hole that has a whole different world. I mean, yeah, dude.
It's all.
I'm just
freaking
saying,
me.
like sci-fi. So the possibility of sci-fi movies right now are just endless.
Gosh.
But apparently this master gave Admiral Byrd this message. It's a long message. But at one point he says to Admiral Byrd, you see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars of barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely the atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. You have been chosen to witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race.
Wow.
You, my son, must return to the surface of the world with this message.
Cool.
And then he died.
So this, maybe 15 years ago, I stumbled across this idea, and it has consumed my mind ever since. Honestly, consumed my mind. And I would love if this was real. It makes sense to me that it is. It's the only reason why I'm not a flat earther, if I'm honest. Like, there's a part of me that believes in the hollow, there's a part of me that believes in the flat, and I don't believe in the idea of us just being a marble floating around. It makes sense that there's some sort of purpose for us being here. Like I said yesterday, I would love to admit that I'm a flat earther. Realistically, I'm trying to figure out the two. Maybe both are possible. I mean, we've heard the phrase as above, so below. Maybe we are the above and they would be the below. Maybe it isn't necessarily hollow, but it's just the other side. Who knows?
What is going on with the WEF? I'm getting total villain, last boss type vibes. Make sure you stick around because you will not hear this anywhere else. We'll come right back to this stuff. Now, before we get into the really crazy part, we have the WEF talking about implanting devices in Bluetooth headphones and other things for who knows what. And yeah, this is pretty crazy, but it gets crazier.
Wearable devices. So these are brain sensors that are starting to be embedded in everyday devices, but until now have been a number of niche companies that really have focused on mindfulness and meditation. The use of, for example, brain sensors that can pick up electrical activity in the brain at a pretty low resolution.
So y'all heard that, right? They're already putting chips in your headphones that can read your brain activity. We also just had Schwabi step down and this guy step up. But let's be real, why do they want to measure your brain activity? What kind of electrical signals can they pick up from your brain? Do you see this behind me? Automatic machine for identifying blanks of blank from voice to skull? So this is a patent that fights against the other patent, which is the voice to skull. So I'm sure you're wondering, what is voice to skull? Well, it's technology where they can implant voices in your own head. You'll think it's you half the time. So I was actually going to get the voice to skull patent, then I found this one instead. If you want to look farther into it. TikTok does this picture, I'm sure they all have infections. So I've showed you in times past where they can literally read your brain from the camera on your phone using your eyes. And through that, they'll decode some electronic signature from your brain to know what you're thinking. Also now with your headphones, they can get that same exact signal. We also have AI being able to detect your location through walls. So long story short, because I'm just joking and I'm just giving y'all some fiction, theoretically, it would never happen. When voices beam to your skull, they'll know what you're thinking about that voice because your headphones or whatever else kind of technology. This all coming up when the last boss fight is stepping up and the new identification required to enter government buildings. Need I say any more?
And our phones are now reading our minds. We've got McDonald's trying to access our dreams for adverts. What's next, man?
Just this past year, I was remote viewing Kate Middleton. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on with her, right? And like the royal family and her not being seen for many months,
what
right?
happened with that?
Okay, it's like a whole long, it's probably the craziest thing I've ever remote viewed, but essentially they killed her off. She wanted to leave the royal family. We already had Meghan and Harry leave. Like, there's been so much scandal. They didn't want her to leave. Her husband was cheating on her. That's a whole internal thing. And so they ended up killing her off and then replacing her with a clone, okay? Anyway, and so it's gonna sound so wild, especially if people are finding me for the first time, but whatever. Anyway, so I was able to take her soul and like reattach it to the clone body, so it is actually her again. It's
what?
Just I know. I didn't even know it was possible until I tried, and it worked.
Wow.
I know.
I don't believe anything she says, but it is still fascinating that she's so confidently saying this. Like, what? There's absolutely, like I've said previously, there's no way this is real, because if it was real, she wouldn't have lasted this long, right? She would have been taken by now.
There is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear on the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. He said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Werner von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Werner von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth, and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Werner von Braun told me in 1974, and I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
Honestly, a big part of me making this channel is to expose this idea that aliens are here to kill us. If aliens wanted to kill us, they would have killed us by now. We are a reality show to them and nothing else. Maybe they're working with government technology, but if they wanted to destroy our planet, it would be destroyed. Like Ronald Reagan said years and years ago, we would need an outside force like aliens to bring us all together. This is the next step. Please just pay attention. Don't listen to everything you see on the news. Don't even listen to everything I say. Think about stuff.
I'm going to say it. I think we're getting stupider. In this 500-year-old cathedral, on the ceiling is one of the craziest things that you will ever see. This is the Rosslyn Chapel. It's in Scotland. Some of the crispiest stonework you're ever going to see, but these are really the point of interest. You may recognize the upside-down spires from Hindu temples. That is because they're communicating the same thing across the world. The speaker cone design of the ceiling is reinforced by the waveform pillars that sits on. At the top of the pillars in Rosslyn, there are angels playing instruments. Now, as you follow the pillar up, you'll see the little nubs. Each one of those is a cube, and on each one of those cubes is a folded up cymatic pattern. As you go up the archway, those cubes form notes and chords. This was discovered by a Royal Air Force codebreaker, Thomas Mitchell. Him and his son decoded this, translated it into music, and recreated a 500-year-old song. We really don't see attention to detail like this any longer. That's because when the church was bankrolling these things, the alchemists and masons built them. But since very few people were educated, they spoke a language of sacred geometry. This way they could communicate in secret and use the building itself as the repository of their knowledge. We're still decoding these.
I absolutely love this. There's clearly so much about frequency and our bodies that we have no idea about. Unfortunately, that is it for today though. Thank you for being here. If you're still here, I appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow. Take it easy.
Before I fall to the system, I'm gonna try and do good with my gifting and pray to the Lord for some wisdom. Pray. Hopefully someone will listen. Amen.